Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Today is Friday, January 14, 2011, the 9th of Safar in the year 1432 after Hijrah. I would like to welcome back Sayed Ammar Nakshawani to Houston. And Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
And today's questions will be quite different from the ones given to you last year when you came here. These questions will focus more on contemporary issues faced in our societies today. The first question is in relation to the treatment and handling of new Muslims. There are too many stories and incidents in our communities where converts and reverts are treated as second-class citizens. What does Islam have to say of such treatment?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Once again, it's a pleasure to conduct an interview looking at the contemporary issues within the religion today. When we look at this first question, it's really a question of the utmost importance, that there's no doubt about. Because we find that there are many reverts who are coming towards the religion of Islam throughout the world, in every community, in the Middle East, in Europe, in Australasia, and indeed in America. And you find that when they settle within our communities, there are some who receive the warmest of receptions, without a doubt. But it seems the majority do feel a bit of sadness that that warmth is not shown towards them. And I think the best way to answer this and how we should approach it in this particular generation is by reanalyzing the generation of the Prophet ﷺ, for of course he is the greatest example in Islamic history for us to look at. Because we find that when he built the religion of Islam, naturally everybody who was coming towards the religion was reverts, as in barring a few who were born on the Islamic path. The majority were reverts. And you find the Quran makes it very clear that if you were hard-hearted or you were severe, then these people would have run away from you. But it's because the Prophet was the type of man who had a soft heart towards everybody. He made it clear that, for example, people like Bilal and Salman, Abu Dhar, these were all reverts. But what he also made very clear is that I want to make sure that these people feel warm with me. I don't want to stand above my men, I want to stand alongside my men. And so this type of warmth has to be expressed within our communities today. As in even the Prophet ﷺ, when he went towards Medina, he knew that the migrants had been Muslims for a while, but the Ansar had only recently come towards the religion of Islam. He wanted to make sure there was a sense of brotherhood between them. So he brought a migrant with a helper, another migrant with a helper, another migrant with a helper, in order to bring the bond of brotherhood. And the Quran says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةً. Surely the believers, or indeed the believers, are brothers of one another. So when I see someone coming towards the religion of Islam, first I have to show respect towards the sacrifices they have made. In many cases, we were born on the path of Islam, whereas that person had to cut certain emotional ties or familial relationships to come towards the religion. And this has to be honored, and this has to be respected. And on the second level, it's vital that we ask them to tell us about their experiences. Tell us what is it about Islam that they saw that we haven't seen. What I mean by that is that yes, we are both Muslims, but looking from a view from the bridge, as some would say, what did you see about this religion that you think I haven't? You think I should be more aware of? So in other words, not only do I want to show warmth to them, I think that the revert should have a role in educating the community about areas which the community takes for granted. I want to also give a benefit of the doubt to our mosques, that in many of our mosques today, the majority of the community weren't used to people coming from outside of the religion into the religion. Ever since we moved into the Western world, you saw a sudden influx of people learning about Islam. So I hope that this generation, this younger generation especially, living in such a cosmopolitan environment will be more open to people of other backgrounds coming towards the religion and help them settle in.
MashaAllah, and MashaAllah, this is vital, and I'm glad you stressed a lot of the points, especially about the bond of brotherhood between Muslims.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. And the next set of questions will be dealing with a major issue, which is marriage. I'm sure you've seen this quite a bit in many communities where you've traveled. Is marriage seems to be a hot topic. So the first question in relation to marriage is about parents forcing their sons to bring their wives to live in their parents' homes. and turning it into a sin if the son wants to maybe move out and set up his own family in his own home. What does Islam have to say of such a stance?
Well, back home in our countries, let's say in the Middle East, for example, or in Asia, let's say, you would find that the type of houses many of us would have would be big enough to live 50 of us. But when we traveled and migrated, the types of houses that we do have, in many cases, don't allow for that many people, or let's say don't even allow for more than 10 people to live in the same house. There is, of course, an issue of comfort and privacy. As in, when you've taken this woman away from her family, you've promised to treat her with respect and with honor. And if everybody is living within the same house, you would find that there may be cases where the partner will say that, you know what, I just don't feel any privacy, as in I want to be comfortable around my house. Your father has just walked out of the bathroom, your mother's just walked out of her bedroom, your sister has just finished from having a moan about something, your brother has just come back with his dirty sports clothing. So we have to consider these things. Islam does not say one thing or the other, as in Islam doesn't force you to stay in the same house as your parents, but nor does Islam say neglect your parents altogether. No, of course you maintain a relationship with your parents, you maintain love and respect towards your parents. I think it's understandable if, for example, your parents are in old age and one of you decides that when they get married they'll stay with them to look after them. That's fantastic, I think. But not 6 brothers and 6 wives in the house, unless of course the house allows for such space and indeed such movements. I think if one brother stays with the parents to look after them, then the wife should respect that without a shadow of doubt. Because parents, in the Quran, God says, when they grow old in age, lower your wings of mercy towards them. But if someone asks, Islamically, is someone obliged to live with their parents? No. Islamically, someone's obliged to protect and look after their parents, but not necessarily live with them.
Okay. Well, here's a question in relation to that. If you look at the biography of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, did the wives of the Prophet, did they live in one house or did they live in separate homes?
Well, you find that without a doubt they're seen as being a separation in terms of living with the Prophet, in terms of even separation of time they'd spend with him. So they'd come to his house. It depends on different days, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So there'd be a separation of days in which each one would stay with the Holy Prophet.
Okay, yeah. Thank you very much. The next question is a twofold question. What can parents do to better involve their kids in the selection of a spouse and encouraging marriage? Also, what can kids do to better involve their parents in the spouse selection process?
I think without a doubt, the earlier parents speak with their sons or their daughters about marriage, the better. It doesn't necessarily mean you marry them off that young. So, for example, a good time for a father to speak with his son about marriage, let's say, is something like the age of 20, for example. As in, you can't put a definitive time. But that age, many fathers would assume, okay, it's better for me to speak about marriage with him at the age of 25. No, let's say you start off at that age where you say, listen, if you want to consider marriage, you want advice on who to look for, I'm there for you. If there are certain issues which have arisen in your private life, you don't know how to discuss them with anyone, come and discuss them with me. So there should be that relationship between the father and the son, or indeed the father and the daughters at that young age. Case in point, even on the daughters in the Quran, when Prophet Shu'aib tells Prophet Musa about the possibility of a marriage to one of his daughters. So I think there has to be communication between the father and the children at a younger age, especially as they begin to enter university. That discussion should really begin, because the worst situation is when a son or a daughter feel that they are too embarrassed to speak with their father or their mother about marriage. Because the reality is, as Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, the right of your child is that you engage in dialogue with them. Then in terms of the sons or the daughters towards the parents, before you go and speak with your parents about marriage, ask yourself, am I responsible enough to jump into this very important decision? Because you're going to go to your parents and they're going to say, but hold on, we're going to take someone from their family. Are you ready to provide the means, the income, and so on? Now, of course, nobody's going to be a multimillionaire at that young age, unless, you might own Facebook or something. It's very rare for a person to be that rich at that young age. So, possibly a compromise between the parents and the children about support in those early days. Support me in those early days, and I promise I will make up whatever finances are needed. So if you feel that you can jump into the deep end, that is marriage, and your parents are there to support you, then why not? But I think the whole gist of what's needed is communication between the two sides. The more there's communication and openness, hopefully the healthier the future relationships.
Thank you. Next question is revolving around racism and nationalism in the spouse selection process. Quite oftentimes, parents and kids set expectations for their children's, spouses, or themselves, saying that they have to be a certain skin color or from a certain country, and if they don't meet those requirements, that person is automatically disqualified as being a viable candidate. What does Islam have to say for such scrutiny?
Well, I think Islam as a religion is very clear that there shouldn't be cultural borders when it comes to two people who love each other or two people who want to live with each other forever. As in the Quran says in chapter 49, verse 13, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Ya ayyuhan nas, inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha, wa ja'alnakum shu'uban wa qabaila lita'arafu, inna akramakum 'inda Allah atqakum. All mankind, we created you from male and female, from different tribes and races, in order that you get to know one another. Different tribes and races. In order that you get to know one another, the best amongst you in the eyes of God is the one who is conscious of God's presence in their life. Not the best amongst you in the eyes of God is the one from Iraq, the one from Iran, Lebanon, Syria, Pakistan, India, Afghanistan, or indeed any of the European countries. No, the best amongst you is the one who's conscious of God's presence. Why? Because when you're conscious of God's presence, then you have that respect for God on earth. You've got that responsibility, that sense of accountability. One day I'll be made questionable for my actions, rather than a haphazard way of life. So you find the Quran is very clear on this. And even if you were to examine Islamic history, you would find that there are many marriages of revered personalities with people outside of their nationality. Let's say, for example, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam marries someone from Persia. Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam marries someone from North Africa. Imam al-Askari alayhi salam marries someone from the Roman Empire, the mother of our 12th Imam, Imam al-Hujjah, Ajjalallahu Farajahu al-Sharif. So you find that the Imams of Ahlul Bayt have set a principle that they could have easily married Medinites, let's say. They're all from Medina, for example. But no, they marry from either Medina, or they would marry from people outside of Medina, but who were honorable, who were people of respect, people of morals. Isn't that what I look for? As in, what's the skin color going to really do for me? What the human being is the traits which are traits to be revered. The makeup of the human being is the makeup of forbearance, the makeup of altruism, the makeup of humility, honor, dignity, respect. This is what I look for in another human being. So Islam wanted to make very clear that if anyone was to now come and say that, you know what, I would only marry from my culture, without a doubt, marrying from your culture makes things easy. There's no doubt about that. You can understand why someone would marry from their culture. Because there's naturally baggage that comes with marriage. It's not just the two of you. There's the parents to deal with, there's the community to deal with. But if religion and its principles are at the helm in your relationship, then you're able to cross culture in terms of marriage.
Well, here's another question that a lot of times the followers of Ahlul Bayt come across, or more like an attack, so to say. Many times the Shi'ah are bombarded with attacks on the basis of mut'ah, temporary marriage. That it's a bid'ah and that it's haram. Also, there's a new concept similar to mut'ah that is being practiced amongst our Sunni brothers and sisters, which is called misyah. What is the Shia stance on the concept of mut'ah and misyah marriage?
Well, you are right without a shadow of doubt that we get attacked constantly and regularly in books and leaflets and videos, articles about the practice of mut'ah, the practice of temporary marriage. The first point that has to be made on this topic is that we respect all the schools of jurisprudence in the religion of Islam. Because of the fact that all these schools of jurisprudence aim to find the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. And they go through their separate avenues in looking for the sunnah. The aim is the same. The conclusions may differ, but doesn't mean we slander each other. As in, there's no room for a person to slander or make fun or so on. As